Oh boy. America obliterates half North Vietnam's MiG-21 fleet in 13 minutes. My friends, is this a crazy title? 100% it is. But before I go into that, let me ask you for one thing. If you can leave a like, thank you so much. Is the best way to show support. Now, if you can subscribe, well, in that case, forget about it. You make my day. Have that in consideration. Link for the original video in my description and let's play it.
Yes, that time during the Vietnam War where the United States Air Force finally agreed to let a double fighter ace pilot from World War II run the show,
What?
he then immediately saw to the destruction of over half of North Vietnam's state-of-the-art
Oh, boy.
fighter jets, and he did it in 13 minutes.
Okay, sorry, my friends. You know what's really crazy about this? This video is 29 minutes, so takes more time to tell the story than actually to destroy half of North Vietnam MiG-21 fleet. Man.
Today we're talking about Operation Bolo, one of the greatest ruses in military history. So Operation Bolo takes place within another mission known as Operation Rolling Thunder, and Operation Rolling Thunder spans from March of 1965 until November of 1968. It is essentially the air war over North Vietnam. So super brief, oversimplified version of what's going on. The American forces are in South Vietnam and they are fighting the VC or the Viet Cong, which is a guerrilla fighting force. And that guerrilla fighting force is receiving supplies from the North Vietnamese via the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So America needs to try to shut down those supply lines. Logic being, if the enemy doesn't have supplies to fight, the enemy can't fight. Real base level War 101 Sun Tzu type stuff, right? Okay, well, America pretty much has two options. They can A, invade North Vietnam with ground forces, or they can B, just attempt to bomb the holy fuck out of them. And
Okay. There is even a third option because I believe the second option is looking tremendous for Americans.
America's going with option B, and that is what Operation Rolling Thunder is. It is just a humongous 3-year-long air bombing campaign where America is going to try to blow up so much North Vietnamese infrastructure that they can't continue to support the Viet Cong. Which, honestly, it's a really good plan. What's the problem? The enemy's got nice things? Oh, well, take the nice things away. Send the planes in, bomb the roads, bomb the railroad tracks, and make it so they can't give the enemy a bunch of supplies. It's good. It should work.
It's actually a great plan. No joke. I mean, attacking by the air is always the best entry into a war, I feel like.
And then the politicians got involved, and let's face it, if anybody could mess up something so simple, it's going to be a politician because, well, honestly, they could probably fuck up boiling water. So how on earth did they mess it up? Well, they gave the American military a bunch of rules of engagement.
Sorry, that's actually true, my friends. And the thing is, you know what? We have to give some props to Nick because he is such an amazing storytelling. Would you guys agree with that?
Which is a fancy way of saying they gave the American military a bunch of rules that only they have to follow and the enemy doesn't, essentially tying the US military's hands behind its back and then sending them into battle anyways. And one of these rules of engagement, or one of these protocols that they had to abide by, was that every plane that went into North Vietnam to bomb them had to travel through a particular air corridor, and that is the only route they were allowed to take into North Vietnam. Meaning that pretty much immediately the North Vietnamese picked up on the pattern that every single plane that flies into their country follows a particular path, and they then proceeded to take all of their surface-to-air missiles, all of their radars, all of their anti-aircraft capabilities in the entire country and put them in this one particular spot, and then the US government decided to keep making their guys fly right through it anyways the entire time. Now this
Wait, my friend. So the Vietnam War, I feel like is a sensitive topic when it comes to, discussing American politics and stuff like that, because it's the only war that I feel like Americans did not perform as well as they expected, and there was a lot of controversial around that war. I need to go a bit more deep into what ended up happening there. If you guys want to share with me what went wrong with Vietnam, I guess we are already seeing something that went wrong. Maybe politicians went wrong. Because would you guys also think this is fair to say that when we are at war, it's kind of stupid to put regulation in your own troops, because in your own military force, because let's be real, the others may not do it and you are completely in danger. So I don't know, this is very interesting, my friends.
At this point, you're probably thinking, oh my God, the politicians might actually secretly be geniuses, because what they've done is they have inadvertently gotten the North Vietnamese to gather all of their anti-aircraft resources into one location, and now we can just bomb those, take them out, and they'll have nothing left, and it'll just be green light, go everywhere. So now the US military is like, yo, Politicians, can I blow that shit up now because it's right there just waiting for me? To which the politicians are like, absolutely not. In fact, we're going to make it a rule that you're not allowed to bomb or attack any anti-aircraft sites, any surface-to-air missile arrays, any anti-aircraft anything. You have to leave it completely unscathed. And our logic
What's the point here? I mean, we are at war, right?
behind that is that at those sites, there could potentially be a Chinese or a Soviet advisor that's helping out the North Vietnamese. And if we hurt one of them, it would upset the Soviets or the Chinese. And then that would be bad diplomatically, even though they're blatantly there to help run a proxy war against us. We're going to go ahead and care more about them than we are about our own pilots. So we're going to go ahead and just have you guys keep flying through that same air channel, through all the anti-aircraft everything, because fuck you. That's why.
This is bullshit.
So that's exactly what happens. Every
What?
single time they fly a mission, every Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps plane has to fly through the same air corridor through a gauntlet of anti-aircraft capability on their way to deliver their payload. And then if that wasn't bad enough, the North Vietnamese got their hands on somewhere between 12 and 16 MiG-21s. And if you don't know, at this point in time, the MiG-21 is the new cutting-edge Soviet fighter jet.
Yeah,
It is
Soviet,
incredibly
yeah.
fast, it has a very high flight ceiling, and it is very, very nimble. And using the
Wait, and the MiG-21 at this time was the best in the world, the best jet?
these MiG-21s, they very quickly develop a strategy that amounts to basically guerrilla warfare in the sky, utilizing a hit-and-run tactic. So their strategy is that they are going to go specifically after the F-105 Thunder Chief, aka the Thud. It is the #1 plane that America is using in Operation Rolling Thunder in all of their bombing runs, and when it is weighed down with a bunch of bombs, it is basically a sitting duck for a MiG-21. So what ends up happening is every time a bunch of thuds get sent out on a bombing run, they have to fly through that corridor of anti-aircraft capabilities, and the arrays and everything else tells the enemy that it's a bunch of F-105s going on a bombing run, so they scramble the MiG-21s, they go up there, they intercept these F-105s, at which point one of two things can happen. The F-105s can continue on their bombing run and most likely get shot down by the MiG-21s, or they can drop their payload just over the jungle randomly in the middle of nowhere, not on target, and then make an escape and live. And bear in mind, the North Vietnamese
But there is no good option either, my friends.
only have a couple of these fighter jets, and they're fighting a war of attrition against a much larger industrial force like America, so they are more than happy to send a plane up there, burn a little bit of fuel, get the Americans to drop tens or hundreds or millions of dollars worth of bombs on the middle of nothing, waste all their money, waste all their time, and then take their planes and land. They don't need to go out there and waste all their missiles and risk their planes. They're just going to get the Americans to waste all of their bombs on nothing. And I know what you're thinking. That seems
See, honestly, when it comes to this type of stuff, I know politicians, of course, have to have a word. And here, I don't think it matters the party. But don't you guys think that, a great general that is on the field with their men should also have their perspective, in terms of level? I think the opinion of someone that is actually there, that actually end up spending a lot of years in the military should count, But we give all the powers to, I guess that's democracy, right? But we give all the power sometimes to politicians that have no idea what they are doing. And the thing is, this can kill even. So sometimes, sorry for a bit of a rant. Sometimes I feel like they are trying to protect lives, specific other countries because there is kids, stuff like that. But they are so bad at their job that I feel like at the end of the day more people die. Than if things went how some people on the field really wanted.
seems like a pretty easy problem. What if we just bombed the MiGs while they were on the ground? Or what if we bombed the airfields that they were coming from? That way they couldn't even take off. Well, luckily we have politicians to step in and tell us once again, you're not allowed to bomb those either because there could potentially be an advisor from China or the USSR there. So leave those alone too. You're only allowed to take out enemy planes when they're in the air. To which the US military is like, okay, I guess we'll do literally the only thing we can do. We'll just send up our fighter jet, the F-4 Phantom II, and try to go toe-to-toe with the MiGs. Okay, so the stage is set. We have one of the sexiest airplanes of all time, the American F-4 Phantom II, going toe-to-toe with the Soviet MiG-21. Okay, here's what I need you to understand about this matchup. This is pretty much the golden era of military planes, okay? In my opinion. It's right before stealth technology came out and planes started to get a little bit slower because they could be sneaky. Now, no. Planes built during this period were just straight up Let's be fast as fuck and carry a ton of firepower.
crazy.
It's the hot rod era
Star
of
Wars.
military planes. And both of these planes are built on that doctrine. The F-4 Phantom tops out at like 1,400 miles an hour. The MiG-21 tops out at like 1,300 miles an hour. The F-4 Phantom is like twice the size of the MiG-21. It's got a way bigger fuel tank. It's got way more range. It can carry a lot more payload. The MiG-21, on the other hand, it's a lot smaller. It's a lot lighter. It's nimbler, but it doesn't have as much range. So the MiG-21 in an up-close dogfight is probably going to be better with its gun, whereas the F-4 Phantom, not really intended for up-close dogfighting. It doesn't even have a gun because it has a more
This could be bad for America. I feel like, my friends, I'm actually quite curious to see how this ends. I guess it ends with North Vietnam MiG-21 fleet destroyed. But the East, at least at this point, seems really, really interesting.
more advanced radar and missiles that can take the enemy out from 29 miles away. It doesn't even need to see the enemy to shoot him out of the sky, so why on earth would it need a gun? Okay, the F-4 Phantom's MO is to haul ass, shoot half-court shots, and have a dope-ass paint job the entire time it does it. So, just so we're all on the same page, Soviet MiG-21, American F-4 very much peers to one another. They are both capable of taking the other out. They both pose a huge threat to one another. However, theoretically speaking, the MiG-21 should have an advantage in an up-close dogfight due to its maneuverability and its gun, whereas the F-4 has the advantage because it can just shoot down the MiG-21 before it even gets close enough for a dogfight to occur. So, MiG-21, better up close, F-4, better far away. So that's it. That's a solution, right? The F-4 Phantoms are going to go up.
Sorry. Am I the only one excited for this fight? Leave a like if you are enjoying this reaction. I've been reacting to Fat Electrician a bit more recently, and you guys have been showing tremendous support, so thank you so much for that. But never forget to leave a like, because that way I assume you guys really enjoy this type of content. Let's continue. Actually, let's run it even a bit back. Focus.
Close,
oh
F4,
boy.
better far away. So that's it. That's a solution, right? The F-4 Phantoms are going to go up. They're going to shoot the MiGs down from like 20 miles away before the MiGs even know they're there, and that's going to be the end of it. Ta-da! Yeah! Luckily for the North Vietnamese, the American politicians step in yet again with another exciting...
Oh no. Damn. I thought this was about to go down.
...rule of engagement. Guess what? You're not allowed to shoot at enemy aircrafts until you have visual confirmation that it is an enemy aircraft. Translation, the American F-4 pilots literally are not allowed to start fighting the MiG-21s until the MiG-21s have the advantage, which is...
That's so dumb, because they don't have a machine gun in the plane, right? So they are not that good at the dogfight. You guys call dogfight when it's close? Man, they should have put some machine gun on that plane. That was a mistake also, let's be real.
Absolutely insane to think about. Like, literally the equivalent of walking up to an infantryman and being like, hey, here's a sniper rifle. Also, you're not allowed to shoot people with it. You're only allowed to use the bayonet. And there's no bayonet because we didn't design it with a bayonet lug, because it's only designed to shoot people from really far away. Get bent. And just in case that wasn't bad enough, what makes this...
Wait, my friend, but you guys really believe they can be this dumb, with all the respect? I mean, I don't want to offend anyone, but... I mean, someone told them, look, we are not good at a close fight. We probably are going to lose if we face them in a close fight. And they go, yeah, you have to fight them in a close... Do you guys think this is even... Who are those people, basically, you know?
Even worse is the fact that most of the F-4 pilots are only trained on the American F-4, which wasn't really designed for up-close dogfighting with a gun because it doesn't have a gun. So most of them don't really know how to conduct an up-close dogfight because they've never been trained to do it, because that's not what their plane is supposed to fucking do. So there's really no good answer, and this goes on for a little while, where basically the F-105s go up, the MiG-21s go up, intercept, the F-105s are then forced to drop all their bombs in the middle of nowhere and take off just so they can survive. The MiG-21s then go and land, and that just repeats itself ad nauseum. But then in September of 1966, something happened that would change everything, because the 8th Fighter Wing out of Udong Thai Royal Air Force Base would get a new commander, and that commander was none other than the legendary fighter pilot, Colonel Robin Olds. And I mean, you can know...
Ooh, man, that guy. You look at this photo and you know, you should not mess with this one.
Nothing about this guy, and you already know he's the main character. I mean, look at the lip sweater on this man. It's the most magnificent taco flosser I've ever seen in my entire life. Okay, let me break this down for you. Anytime you've ever seen a movie with the cool bad boy character that doesn't follow the rules, it's also a fighter pilot, it's based off of this guy, whether you know it or not. Okay, I want you to understand the gravity of the situation here. This man's mother passed away when he was 4 years old, and he was raised by a single father that was also a full-time Army pilot and a World War I veteran. This guy was essentially bred to be a fighter pilot. He went to West Point where he became an...
You know what? This is the type of guy you really should not mess, you know. Sometimes people tend to be tough, and you guys have a great quote in America that you are not that guy or you are not that man. But I believe this is that man, you know.
All-American football player at 6'2", 250 pounds. He then went on to become a fighter pilot in World War II. Now, if you shoot down 5 or more enemy planes, you become an ace pilot. It's kind of a really big deal. And Robin Olds was a double ace in World War II. This man literally prestiged in the most extreme air-to-air combat the world has ever seen, and he's about to become a triple ace in Vietnam.
No
and at
chance.
the age of 44, nonetheless. How's the old saying go? Beware of an old man in a young man's game. Yeah, this is the main character for sure. And like most great main characters, Robin Olds has a lot of very high-ranking people that don't really like him that much, mostly because he's not afraid to ruffle a couple of feathers to get his point across. And most recently, the argument that he's been having with the establishment is the fact that the F-4 Phantom, the main fighter jet for the United States military, should probably have a gun on it. He also has an issue with how these new pilots are being trained because they're not really being trained how to actually dogfight. They're just being trained how to haul ass, intercept a plane, and shoot a missile at it, as opposed to actually getting into a close quarters fight. And the chain of command is basically...
Wait, so this pilot actually knows how to talk, but the plane does not help. That's a problem.
Telling Robin Olds, like, hey, look, you're old. They don't do it like that anymore. You were fighting in World War II in P-51 Mustangs and P-38 Lightnings. This is not what's going on anymore. These kids are flying F-4 Phantoms that can fly at 1,400 miles an hour and shoot missiles and take out targets from 30 miles away. We don't need to teach them up-close dogfighting anymore because they're never actually going to use it because the technology eliminates the need for that. But you know what technology doesn't fix? Politicians being fucking stupid. So now everybody has to fight like it's World War II in a dogfight because they're not allowed to use the technology the way they're supposed to because politicians that don't understand what they're talking about get to make up all the rules. So now they're sending Robin Olds to go take over command of the 8th Fighter Wing. He shows up and immediately earns everybody's respect. Keyword, earns it. Doesn't just get it given to him. And the way that he earns it is one of the best examples of leadership that I have ever read about. This man shows up to take command of an entire fighter wing as a double ace World War II pilot and a legend, and he decides to immediately put himself on the flight roster as a rookie to get trained on how to better use the F-4 Phantom because he's not very well acquainted with it, and he lets all the men that are lower than him train him on this plane. He didn't come in...
Oh, that's great. You have to admire a man like that, right, my friends? Man, I'm excited. Okay. Sorry, I get a bit too excited watching this type of videos. Sorry for that. It is what it is.
All cocky. He wasn't some arrogant prick. He just admitted, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. I've flown a lot of planes. I'm not super great with the F-4 Phantom. I need to get great with it so I can lead you guys. And that's exactly what he did. And it immediately earned him all the respect in the world. So Robin takes some time to get acquainted with the F-4 Phantom. And within a couple of weeks, he's already flying the plane better than most of the trainers. So now that Robin Olds is caught up on the F-4 Phantom to where all of his guys are, he is now going to teach these young whippersnappers how to dogfight like it's World War II. And this is like the cool moment from all the movies where old schools teach a new school how to get shit done anyways, okay? This is Rocky teaching Adonis Creed how to box. This is Doc teaching Lightning McQueen that sometimes you got to turn right to go left. And while all of this is happening, Robin Olds, in another great display of leadership, realizes that there's not enough of him to go around and he needs backup. He needs another badass World War II era pilot to come over and help him get these guys ready. So Olds calls in a couple of favors, gets one of his longtime friends transferred over to the 8th Fighter Wing to help him run the show, and that friend is none other than the legendary pilot Daniel Chappie James Jr., aka the Black Eagle. Okay, in the late 1930s, early 1940s, this man was a civilian pilot at the Tuskegee Institute that was contracted by the U.S. government to train U.S. pilots how to fly. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you this is the man that trained the famous Tuskegee Airmen from World War II before eventually enlisting and becoming one himself in 1943. After enlisting, he became an officer, at which point he was deemed too valuable as a trainer, so that's what he did for the duration of World War II, continued to train an entire generation of fighter pilots and never actually saw combat himself. Then, in Korea, he would fly over 100 combat missions before working at the Pentagon, where he would end up meeting Robin Olds. After this, he goes on to become the first black man to become a 4-star general in the United States military.
Holy
this man is also
clap for that gentleman. That's amazing.
A complete badass, so Uncle Sam is essentially...
Yo, those two together, yeah, good luck, Vietnam.
playing Operation Bolo on co-op mode with...
You know they are going to win.
two main characters on the field. So Chappie shows up to the 8th Fighter Wing, is reunited with his old friend Robin Olds. They become this extremely effective chain of command, and they are absolutely loved by all of their subordinates. Because of that, this leadership duo is given a nickname that is originally intended as a term of endearment, although by today's standards is probably not very politically correct, and that nickname was Black Man and Robin. Now, all this happens in like the span of 3 months. So December 1966, they're running combat operations, and Robin Olds finally gets an idea of how to stop these new badass MiG-21s. By this point, Robin Olds is completely caught on to the MiG-21's entire strategy. They have zero interest in actually fighting with the F-4s, which is driving Robin Olds nuts because he's a World War II era fighter pilot. That's exactly the type of shit that he's into.
Yeah.
These MiG-21 pilots, however, just want to go up there, use guerrilla warfare tactics where they just either hit the F-105s or don't hit the F-105s and just convince them to drop their payload prematurely and waste everybody's time and then take back off. The MiG-21s have zero interest in tangling with the F-4s, which Robin Olds interprets as, I need to force these MiG-21s to fight me. So how's he going to do that? Well, here's his plan. The reason the MiG-21s can identify the F-105s so efficiently is because the F-105s have a jamming pod on them that basically disrupts and interferes with the surface-to-air missiles down below. It messes up their radar so that the F-105s aren't going to get taken out by all the anti-aircraft stuff on the ground. Problem with that is that emits a frequency that the North Vietnamese can see. They then know that a bunch of F-105s are coming, so they scramble the MiGs. So Robin Olds decides, hey, let's take those jamming pods, mount them to mine and all the guys' F-4s, and then we'll fly there like we're F-105s in a bombing formation, and the MiGs will come attack us. And by the time they get close enough to realize that we're not F-105s, ideally, it's going to be too late. Yeah, the legendary World War II double fighter aces just went to the chain of command and requested permission to execute the old Wile E. Coyote in a sheep costume to catch the Roadrunner strategy. Now, probably going to work.
Very simple plan, but could work.
But there are a bunch of problems with this idea. Biggest problem right out of the gate is this doesn't solve the issue with rules of engagement, because remember, you're not allowed to fire on the enemy until you have visual confirmation that it is your enemy, and by then the MiG-21s have an edge in air-to-air combat. Okay, not a big deal though, because Robin has a two-step plan for that as well. Okay, step number one, he knows that they only have 12 to 16 MiG-21s, so he's just gonna roll in with 28 F-4s, okay? Just completely overwhelm them, even if they do have an edge in air-to-air combat. Okay, step number two, which is quite frankly the big ask, he wants the entire US military to shut down all air operations over Southeast Asia while he conducts this operation. He wants the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marine Corps, none of them to have any birds in the sky whatsoever. And his reason for that is so that he can bypass the rules of engagement. You see, the only reason the politicians are enforcing that rule of engagement where you have to have visual confirmation before you fire on an enemy plane is because there's a ton of planes in the air over Southeast Asia at all times, and Vietnam is already super controversial over in America, and the last thing the politicians want to have to deal with is headlines that an American plane shot down another American plane. So they just made the rule you're not allowed to shoot at anything unless you can visually see 100% for certain that it is in fact an enemy. So if Robin can make
Damn, that's an incredible idea. That way, he knows for sure. So the rule that the politicians try to apply, oh man.
sure that the only planes in the sky are his guys and the enemy, he should be able to go bombs away the entire time and not have to worry about it. So obviously, this is a massive request, and the chain of command says yes.
You son of a bitch.
Okay, so now the last thing we got to figure out, how do we make sure that these MiG-21s don't slip away? Because they're so nimble and they're so fast, they could pull a tight maneuver and be back at base before we're going to be able to catch them. So how are we going to prevent that? As soon as the MiG-21s take off and get in the air, they're going to send half of the F-4s to haul ass past the entire future battlefield, and they're just going to do hot laps around the enemy airfield, making it so the enemy can't go to land without fighting through those F-4s first, which effectively is going to give the pilots of the MiG-21s two options. They can stand and fight the F-4s, retreat, and fight the other F-4s, or they can retreat, have nowhere to land, and eventually run out of gas. And remember, the F-4s have a much larger gas tank, so they are definitely going to run out of gas first. So it's a perfect plan. There's just one small problem left. How are we going to know when the MiG-21s take off and leave the airfield? Because if we send the F-4s out too soon, then the MiG-21s won't take off at all, and then we can't bomb them on the ground, and it defeats the entire purpose of the mission. Easy problem to solve. We're going to get two spy planes, the C-130B2, aka the Silver Dawn. At this point, point in time, it is a state-of-the-art electronic warfare spy plane, and it's going to be able to receive all the enemy radio transmissions, so they're going to be able to tell as soon as the enemy MiG-21s take off. And obviously, given the fact that that was such an easy problem to solve, bureaucracy is obviously going to step in and make it extremely difficult because the US military only has like 20 of these Silver Dawn spy planes, and while they are technically the property of the United States Air Force, they are directly under the command of the NSA, the National Security Agency, and they are super duper stingy about whoever gets to use these planes. Basically, the NSA gets final say as to whether or not this plane gets to participate in this mission, and that means that they're going to have to go through some stupid bureaucratic process where they ask for permission, it gets run up the chain of command like 30 people deep, and then finally some bureaucrat has to take responsibility. They're not going to do that because they don't want to put their ass on the line, so it's probably just going to be a big fat no, you can't use this plane, even though it's probably going to make the whole mission work. Now, this is normally the part of the story where the hero strategically transfers a piece of equipment to an alternate location so that he can get the job done. However, he doesn't have to do that because what they do instead is decide to not tell the NSA anything.
But what Mama don't know won't hurt her.
Oh, man.
And when I say they're not going to tell the NSA anything, I mean they are somehow going to keep it a secret from the NSA, the whole part of the story where the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, and the Army ground every single bird that's not on this mission. They're going to somehow keep that a secret from the fucking spy agency so that they go ahead and send up their 2 Silver Dawns doing hot laps around the Gulf of Tonkin that they have going around every single day, so that those 2 planes are in the air participating on this mission, whether the NSA knows it or not. And then as soon as the mission kicks off, they're going to radio over to them and just have them tell them whether or not the MiG-21s took off. It's both genius and hilarious because now, even if the NSA does find out after the fact and get all pissed off, all the Air Force chain of command has to do is be like, oh, you guys didn't get that memo? We sent it. At which point they're basically going to be forced to just drop the issue because none of them are going to want to take responsibility for not passing along the memo that never actually got sent. So that's it. This mission gets approved. Operation Bolo is gonna happen. So they hurry up. They get all the jamming pods off of F-105s. They mount them on the F.
To be honest, real talk, this plan was amazing, because look at all the problems they end up facing and they still find a way.
Force. And while that's going on, they schedule it with the entire US military, all 4 branches, that nobody is to have planes in the air on January 2nd, 1967, except for the NSA, of course. Somebody forgot to tell them. So January 2nd rolls around, the Silver Dawn spy planes are already in the air, the F-4s are on the airstrip with the jamming pods mounted and they're ready to go, and it's fucking cloudy and overcast out, which is not good for this entire mission. But also, fuck it, there's nothing they can do. They have to run this mission right now. They shut down the skies over all of Southeast Asia to get this shit done. It has to happen right now or it's never gonna happen. But I mean, hey, it should all work out. I mean, even inside of the art of war, Sun Tzu once said, and I quote, "You can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather."
Yeah. He didn't say
How
that,
did the
right?
lyrics to Miss Jackson get inside of my Sun Tzu book? I guess I was André 3000. I apologize. 1,000,000,000 times. Anyways, point stands. The mission goes. So the F-4s get put up in the air, and there's 7 flights of F-4s. Each flight is 4 F-4s for a total of 28, and they are all named after cars. Flight 1 is named Olds, being led by Robin Olds. Flight 2 is Ford, led by Chappie, and Flight 3 is Rambler, being led by Captain John Stone. And everything they do follows exactly what the F-105s would normally do. They're taking the same route at the same elevation, using the same radio frequencies. They're even using bomber call signs in case somehow their radio transmissions get intercepted, and they're emitting the same jamming frequencies as well, using those pods. So sure enough, the MiGs show up, and wouldn't you know it, the first guy to see one is none other than Robin Olds. He immediately splits his flight into 2 groups of 2, and Olds and his wingman take off after this MiG. Olds fires 2 radar-guided missiles, and they both end up losing their lock, and he misses entirely. He then closes the distance more so he can fire a heat-seeking missile, and it's a dud. And then the MiG that he's chasing goes into the clouds, and he loses them entirely, and as soon as he loses sight of that MiG, another MiG is screaming past him, going the opposite direction, so close that Olds can't just make a normal turn. Without batting an eye, Olds immediately hits a vector roll, which is a technique right out of the World War II dogfighting handbook.
No
It's
chance.
essentially you nose up and you do a backflip corkscrew maneuver and end up behind your enemy. And as he's mid-vector roll upside down pulling G's, he gets a radio transmission from Captain Johnson of Rambler Group saying, "Hey, I just got into the battlefield. Where are you? I heard that you're engaging an enemy." Olds finishes the vector roll, gets behind this MiG, radios back to Stone, finds your own, and then fires a missile and blows up the first MiG-21. At this point, the rest of
Dude, that's so bad. Come on. Oh my god, that's unreal. They should make a movie of that.
The MiGs kind of figure out that the Americans have tricked them and they are now basically locked inside of the Thunderdome and they're going to have to fight their way out to have any chance at all, and the entire thing devolves into one enormous dogfight. And remember, the other 4 flights aren't there yet. They're lagging behind a couple of minutes, so we still just have the original 3 flights of Olds, Ford, and Rambler for a total of 12 F-4s going toe-to-toe with an unknown number of MiGs, potentially as many as 16. Now, cutting over to Ford flight, Chappie has a MiG on his tail and he has no idea because his radio is malfunctioning and he can't hear his wingman telling him, hey, you have an enemy on your tail. So his wingman does the only thing he can think of. He handles it by himself. Bear in mind, it is Chappie, the MiG, and then his teammate. So his teammate can't fire any missiles because he can't risk that missile accidentally locking onto Chappie. So he has to perform another vector roll. He noses up, does a corkscrew, backflips, and that puts him at 90 degrees from where he was previously. So now he's coming this way towards the enemy, and he fires heat-seeking missiles and blows up the MiG-21 behind Chappie without Chappie even knowing that it happened. Chappie then immediately engages 2 MiGs that are directly in front of him, and while that's going on, cutting back over to Olds, his wingman informs him that, hey, his secondary fuel tank isn't feeding fuel for some reason, so he's already low on fuel. They're 5 minutes into this dogfight, and Robin Olds makes the call that he is going to escort his wingman out of the target area and back to the airfield, which is yet again another phenomenal display of leadership. He could have ordered somebody else to do it so he could have stayed in the fight and soaked up more kills and padded his stats, but no, he did it himself. For the next 8 minutes, the remaining 10 F-4s engage every MiG-21 they can find until they have either been blown up or have disappeared and are hiding in the clouds. So at this point, the F-4s call it a day. They head back to base. The other 4 flights of F-4s didn't even make it to the target zone in time, so only 12 of the 28 F-4s in the air actually engage the enemy. As the F-4s start showing up and they start landing, the ground crews are there waiting with anticipation to find out how it went. I mean, this is one of the coolest missions ever done, probably the coolest thing a lot of these guys are ever going to be involved with. So they're super pumped to hear how it went. As the F-4 canopies open up, the pilots start holding up fingers of 1s and 2s, telling everybody how many MiGs they shot down, and the entire place turns into an enormous party. They're celebrating. All these guys are just absolutely pumped that they shot down a bunch of MiG-21s. So they debrief, trying to figure out everything that happened in this 13 minutes of absolute chaos, and first and foremost, the best news, not a single American pilot got shot down. Then they figure...
Come on, how crazy is that? Holy man, wow, this is incredible. I'm gonna tell this story to a lot of people, my friends.
Out that they for sure shot down 7 MiG-21s with an additional 2 probable for a total of as many as 9, and bear in mind that the North Vietnamese only had somewhere between 12 and 16 to begin with. So at worst, Operation Bolo has effectively destroyed at least half of North Vietnam's MiG-21 fleet. Okay, and there's always going to be that one guy in the comments section like, buh, I can't believe you made an entire video about them only shooting down 7 aircrafts, buh. Okay, first of all...
I mean, only, who says that again? This was incredible execution of a plan that had a lot of problems, you know?
This isn't a video game, this is real life, and going 7-0 against peer aircrafts is
it's
absolutely
amazing,
incredible. Secondly, in a way, Operation Bolo didn't just destroy half of the enemy MiG-21 fleet, it also destroyed their entire fleet's operational capability, and that is because now they can't make a mistake like that again because they've lost half of their fucking planes. If they do that, they won't have any. In addition to that, now, they have no way of knowing if it's actually a bunch of F-105s are getting sent up to fight, or if it's another trap. So now the remaining MiG-21s are going to be infinitely more cautious and more sparingly used, which is going to save countless F-105s in the long run. So in conclusion, Operation Bolo has gone down in history as one of the most successful ruses of all time, and it serves as a shining example of why you should never underestimate a couple of old men in a young man's game.
Never.
In addition to that, it also proved something that I previously thought to be impossible, that you can, in fact, overcome the stupidity of politicians. The bad news is that you have to be a superhero level badass like Robin Olds or Daniel Chappie James Jr. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
Man, I mean, I praised Nick so many times already. This channel is amazing. Man, this was... I may watch this one again later. This was quite amazing. I don't even know what to say, my friends. Thank you so much for watching this with me. I hope you had fun. Sorry for pausing too many times, but this is a crazy, crazy video. Can we all agree? But yeah, see you guys in the next one. Bye, my friends.